views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Darren Hyman. Today we're going to update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up on today's show, we'll give you an update on what's been going on right here in the Bronx. Plus, President Donald Trump is blaming this weekend's violence in Charlottesville, Virginia on both sides. The president even goes as far as calling the counter-white supremacist group alt-left. We'll discuss more with our political commentator in studio. Then after that, we're going to talk to a professor from the Africana and African American Studies Department at Lehman College to discuss America's racial history and where exactly white supremacy stems from. Then we'll talk to representatives from the Foresight Collective organization and find out how they go about helping and empowering students. And then lastly, we'll talk about two community events taking place right here in our borough that will help inform residents in our community. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello everyone, I'm your host Darren Hyman. Today is Wednesday, August 16th. Of course, you're watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We want to encourage you to stay connected to us. How? Well, you can find out more about us at Twitter at BronxNetTV and Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Well, lots been going on over the past week, but right now, we'll catch you up with some Bronx updates. Well, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo has announced a new legislation helping to prevent any situation similar to the Charlottesville, Virginia protest. The bill would add to the state hate crimes law the new offenses or rioting and inciting to riot when targeted protected classes. Now, under the new plan, dubbed as Charlottesville provision, any penalties for participation in rioting that is deemed as a hate crime will carry out tough sanctions. The governor stated, quote, "The ugly events that took place in Charlottesville must never be repeated. In New York, we're going to stand up against hate in all forms. Our diversity is our strength, and this legislation will help protect New Yorkers and send a clear signal that violence and discrimination has no place in our society," end quote. Well, New York City is also gearing up to expand 2 more ferry routes along the Lower East Side and also seeking approval from the Army Corps of Engineers to build the new docks by next summer. Now, the Bronx dock will expand from Classens Point in the Bronx and will end at Wall Street. The Economic Development Corporation submitted an application including not only the construction of the docks in the Bronx, but also a request to build a new home for ferry services in Brooklyn. The Army Corps is soliciting public comments on the locations, trying to determine if the permits will be issued, denied, or modified. The newly ferry system that is launched in May has carried over 1 million riders and also plans on launching an Astoria line on August 29th. In other news, Dominicans and fellow New Yorkers gathered together for the 35th annual Dominican Parade. Many danced in the festivities that started from 36th to 52nd Streets. Local officials such as New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio participated in the parade, also giving remarks in regards to the Virginia attack, giving many New Yorkers comfort. The parade also honored the fallen police officer Missy Otis Familia, who was killed by a gunman early this summer. Her family was presented with a Lifetime Service Award, who were all thankful for the recognition. Ebony Merritt, the mother of burn victim Jamisha Merritt, has created a GoFundMe page to help pay for her daughter's medical bills. Jamisha was seriously burned at a sleepover when one of the girls threw boiling hot water on her face. The goal is $5,000 and it reached $765 by Friday. Now, in regards to the incident, a 12-year-old has been arrested and charged with assault. A hydrogen station will be hopefully making its way to the Bronx. Permits have been filed for a hydrogen station at 2274 Tolleson in the Co-op City section of the Bronx by French company Air Liquide. For fuel electric, I should say, vehicles run on hydrogen and refuel approximately 5 minutes compared to battery vehicles that take about hours. Now, fuel electric cars are only made in California, but once the hydrogen fueling stations are completed, Northeast car makers will begin to offer zero-emission vehicles. In other news, the 40th Precinct Community Council held a recent annual night out against crime, helping to build ties with the community, hoping to reduce crime in the Bronx. Our reporter Arlene Makoko was out in the field, and she brings us the story.
It was National Night Out Against Crime here on Brook Avenue off 138th Street. Food and fun marked the 40th Precinct Community Council's annual event, an event that looks to build stronger ties with the community to reduce crime.
It's a community building partnership between the NYPD and the community, where we showcase all the different units that are here today, our NCOs, our auxiliary officers, our explorers, our regular community affairs officers, everybody under one umbrella.
There was also a lot to celebrate with overall crime in this precinct at historic lows.
I think the community involvement has a lot to do with everything. And we're down in murders this year, we're down significantly in robberies, and it's really the NCO program and really working with the community to make the streets safer together, and that's really the most important part of policing.
Crime has been going down for a long time in the city and in the Bronx, but the reductions of late, the significant reductions, are really because of the new community policing program.
Among those visiting tables, Shaquina Brantley looking at the possibility of becoming an auxiliary officer.
I actually graduated from ASA College with Associates in Criminal Justice, so I am trying to get into the law enforcement.
What we do is recruit for the NYPD, auxiliary, and we have a lot of health benefits and things of that nature going on here today.
Also major partners in the event that took place at precincts throughout the city, State Assemblyman Louis Sepulveda and State Senator Ruben Diaz Sr.
National Night Out is a perfect night to come out to join the community, to support the community, and to let everyone know that crime no longer exists in our borough. Our borough is growing, our borough is coming up.
We cover so many of the districts, so we're going to make sure we honor and pay our respects to all the community districts and precincts here, because police officers here do a great work protecting us, and we want to make sure that they recognize and we recognize together the efforts they do on behalf of all of us.
District Attorney Darcel Clark also there to promote an event happening within her office.
It's just so important that people know that the police are there for them, that the DA's office is there for them, that the community, the police, and the DA's office together, and only together, can we help make the Bronx streets safe.
This is an image the 40th Precinct Community Council wants to cultivate, the community partnering directly with the NYPD to create safer neighborhoods. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
Good time had by all. Thank you, Arlene. Well, we're taking a quick break, and we'll return with more, concluding the president's comments in regards to the Charlottesville situation.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
After waiting 3 days to formally address the country on a recent violence in Charlottesville, Virginia, a protest led by white nationalists, President Donald Trump held a press conference at the Trump Tower. In his remarks, he stated, quote, "I think there's blame on both sides." Let's take a look at what he said.
They came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right. Do they have any semblance of guilt? Let me ask you this. What about the fact they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute. I'm not finished. Fake news. That was
Fake news. Well, here now to talk about this latest issue, we welcome political commentator and owner of Retrovision Media, Lee Bynes. And what are we to make of the president's comments, given the fact that first the comments, and then secondly, I've never heard a president, refer to someone as fake news.
Well, let's bring this into a broader context with regards to the remarks that he made and the false equivalency that he was trying to generate with this story. I had to take this back, about 3 decades in terms of looking at Donald Trump's history with regards to race. And here in New York City, if you recall the Central Park jogger case and the Central Park Five, those 5 young men who were eventually convicted. During that time, Donald Trump took out $85,000 worth of ads.
Convicted and then acquitted, you should say.
Convicted and acquitted, okay. But at that time, he took out all of these ads asking for the death penalty to be brought back, where's our police, et cetera, and he created an atmosphere that pretty much got those young men convicted unfairly, as DNA tests revealed that they were not guilty. People were actually, the real perpetrator was actually caught and confessed to the crime. And still, back as early as 2013, 2016, Donald Trump was still disparaging these people, saying that they had to be guilty of something. Donald Trump has also had a history of trying to keep African Americans and Hispanics out of his buildings here in New York City. He had to pay a $200,000 fine for being caught forcing black workers off of the floor in the casino when he and his wife came in because he didn't want to be exposed to people of color, I suppose. So this man has a long history of having issues with people of color. So it didn't surprise me when he came to the microphone and made those statements trying to say that the left was as guilty as the right. As far as I'm concerned, when you find someone walking down the street with swastikas and making Hitler salutes, this type of behavior, anti-Semitism, racism, the Nazis, the KKK, when you see that happening, I think all of us, blacks, whites, Latins, Muslims, everybody, because we're all in that other category as far as these folks are concerned, you have to stand up to that. So when the left was standing up to hate, to be able to categorize them in the same way that he's categorizing the white separatists, supremists, et cetera. It didn't surprise me, but this is what we have.
Let me read a quote from the president in assessing that he says, in assessing that race relations in America have gotten, quote, better or the same since he took office.
I find that difficult to believe. However, if you want to unpack that statement, I believe one of the reasons why Donald Trump became president of the United States is because Barack Obama was president of the United States. And race issues were definitely a problem in Barack Obama's administration simply because, well, he was a black president. And in a lot of minds, I can't speak for all white people because, you know, I got a lot of really, really cool people that I hang out with, but in a lot of the people's minds, they feel that the ascension of people of color, the ability for other groups to do well seems to come at their expense. And now that Donald Trump has given them a voice, giving them a license, they're no longer hiding behind their keyboards and behind their computer terminals and monitors. Now they can come out in the open and they feel very comfortable showing their faces walking down the street. That Friday night experience that occurred with the Tiki flames, when I saw that, it took me back to some of the films that I was watching back what was going on in Nazi Germany, where they have these long parades, these night parades going on. It took me back to the 60s when I started seeing Klansmen, you know, burning crosses to signify their power and to put fear into the community.
Well,
So
let me cut in here because about the White House. 3 days it took the president to come out and make a comment. That's what we started with the lead on. The president says, "quote I needed to assess the situation, and we need to get more information." My problem is that I remember in a previous administration when he went in against Osama bin Laden, you were watching in real time what was going on. What takes so long to make an assessment as to what's going on when it's playing out in front of all of America to see?
Well, here's the deal. As they say, you only have one opportunity to make a first impression. He blew it. And not only did he blow it, but then he doubled down on it. He had a chance to think things through, and he came right back with what he originally had in his heart. And so now we pretty much understand that the alt-right, white supremacists, Nazis, and those who espouse KKK concepts, ideas, and beliefs, they have a friend in the White House. The only people up until now who's come out in support of what Donald Trump had to say was folks from the alt-right.
Where do we go from here?
Well, as people of color, Jews, Muslims, Latins, all of us, I think we have to rally together and push back against what we see as happening, and join the Caucasians that are with us, because I'm of a firm conviction that the majority of this country feel as though that line of thinking is not where this country is going. And not only that, you know, it's not just what's happening here in the United States, but I had to monitor the news around the world. And in Germany right now, a American visitor was out there, Sieg Heiland. There was a few Chinese visitors who thought it was funny to do it while they were there. They were arrested. If you go to France, and I've been there many times, they have laws against the types of things that what was happening here in the United States. Now, I know that some people may say that may infringe upon one's free speech, but when you show up in those pictures that we saw earlier, what you didn't see in some of those pictures was the armed resistance of the party that was there. There were guys there with long guns. There were guys there with sidearms, extra packs of ammunition. Now, if they came there for anything, for a peaceful rally, a peaceful demonstration, there was no need for that type of weapons. So when the president says, well, they came at these people with sticks and please, give me a break. I don't know where we're going as a country right now, but I know right now we have a long way to get there.
We know the president is always on Twitter. Former KKK leader David Duke was on Twitter as well, and he thanked the president, saying, quote, thank you, President Trump, for your honesty and courage to tell the truth about Charlottesville and condemn the leftist terrorists in Black Lives Matter, and referring to Black Lives Matter and the anti-fascist movement.
Well, you know what? Again, as I mentioned before, the only people who came out in support of what Donald Trump was saying was the alt-right. Again, they feel as though they have support. They feel that they can come out of the shadows now. They feel as though that they can make statements in public that they would have never said before. The fact that they were out full face, the fact that they're not afraid of social media and people out in the community showing their faces and identifying them for the feelings that they have, they're perfectly fine with that.
You got a driver that drives with an open license plate.
Yes.
So obviously somebody's not concerned.
Not in the least. So I think moving forward right now, as I said before, people of high moral standing people who believe in inclusion and not exclusion. I think we have a duty to stand up to this, and every time those on the alt-right has a demonstration, a parade, if you will, down any main street in America, they need to know that they're going to be confronted. And the president needs to understand that, understand why we, the people, us, are doing that confrontation.
Lee Vines, thanks again. That's what we bring in every week. All right, take a quick break. We'll be back with more shows. Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally. I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands? My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terracloth diapers breathe better?
I did. It's totally true.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that. Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
Every time I hear the alarm bell go off in school, I think it's an air raid. A lot of houses in our neighborhood have been destroyed. I like to close my ears and sing songs whenever the bombs come close. I'm worried our new neighbors won't like us. But I know it's all gonna be worth it. I just want my family to be safe. But these are not my words. These are not my words. These are not my words.
Open up your books to page 360.
Did you just look at your phone while you was in class? You played yourself.
Talking about inspirational quotes.
You gotta believe in yourself. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Louise, can you give me an example of an inspirational quote?
Don't play yourself. The key is to make it.
And who said that?
I did. Now that's a major key alert.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at getschool.com.
I guess sometimes things just happen. Devastating things. Your whole world changes in an instant. That's what happened to me the day my mother had a stroke.
I'm Paul George, and I want you to spot a stroke fast.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911.
Protect the ones you love.
Spot a stroke fast.
Well, this weekend's protests in Charlottesville, Virginia brought hundreds of neo-Nazis, white nationalists, and white supremacists all together for a violent protest that even resulted in the killing death of a young woman. Racism continues to be an issue in this country, along with white supremacy. Here now to share more about America's racial history and the current state of white supremacy in America, please welcome the chairperson of African American Studies at Lehman College, Dr. Mark Christian. He's also the department chair, and good to have you.
Thank you, Darren. Thanks for having me.
Important conversation to have. When we look at what's happening in Charlottesville, Virginia, many people go back to the 60s and say this is nothing but a rewind of the 60s. Some people thought white supremacy was gone. Some people feel that it's been just simply buried and put away. Give us an assessment.
Well, first of all, we have to go to the beginning of this nation, which is 1776. It's very young, this nation, 241 years. But at the start of the nation, it began as a half-free, half-enslaved nation built on genocide of the American Indian. So we have to be conscious of the origins of the United States as a nation. Secondly, because of time, we have to jump to 1865 and the end of enslavement, because it's at that point when the origins of the KKK become apparent in the United States under a Confederate general called Nathan B. Forrest. So around 1865 to 1866, the development of the KKK took place in the United States and intimidated African Americans across the southern states, where Reconstruction was taking place. Reconstruction lasted for about 12 years, where African Americans received a modicum of social uplift and had political empowerment. But 12 years was a very short time. After post-Reconstruction, 1877 up to the 1920s, you had what's called as the nadir experience of African Americans, which was the lowest point, with the intimidation, lynching. Any African American attempting to vote would be sometimes killed or lynched. So that is the history and the intimidation of the KKK. That's its origins. If we jump forward to the Civil Rights Movement, the Civil Rights was about bringing down the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896, which was in that nadir period. And Dr. King and many other of the civil rights leaders were about bringing an end to formal segregation in the southern states. The KKK re-emerged, intimidating the civil rights movement. Fast forward to 2017, we have the KKK rising again because the political office, the highest office in the land, has a de facto supporter of far right-wing politics.
So let me ask the question, how far, because some people thought the KKK was pretty much a dead thing and just pretty minimal, but from what we're seeing and what's being present right now, and what we saw in Virginia, there's a lot of life out there.
There's a lot of life, and they've always been there. And for those viewers who want to know more, they should study the Southern Poverty Law Center, because they've kept a track of hate groups in the United States for at least 40 years. So they have a very good track on hate groups in America. So your point is, they went under a rock, but they've always been active, yeah? With the advent of the 45th president, we see the right wing coming out in droves.
We used to see, we saw with the KKK sheets covering heads. Now
Yes.
there's no the sheets covering heads. People are very vocal. People are very outspoken. As I said in the last segment, the person that drove into the car, their car had their license plate in clear display. So clearly, no hiding. Why?
They're confident. They're a very confident group, because the president is a de facto supporter. So they're coming out emboldened, strengthened by Trump's rhetoric. Not only Trump, we've got to be very specific about who's behind Trump, because you've got Bannon, Stephen Miller, and Sebastian Gorka. They're extremely far-right thinkers within the White House think tank. So it's not as if it's just Trump, but Trump is a big reason why right-wing groups are coming to the fore, in my opinion.
Right. And so when we look at the president, we see right now a cabinet that lacks diversity. You see a lot of things in the White House that lacks diversity.
Yeah.
You've got those minority groups who literally say it is the, quote, White House.
It is the White House, or the White House.
How do we address this as a nation now? Because obviously we see protests coming against us. We know how things were handled in the 60s. What do we do now?
The point I want to get across, or one of my key points, is not to have divisiveness. There are young white people now young white people who are being influenced by this political era. I want them to understand that back in the 60s, you had Viola Liuzzo, who was murdered in 1965. She was a white woman from Detroit. She got lost in civil rights history. You had Michael Schwerner and Andrew Goodman. They're more well-known, the civil rights young students working in the 60s who were murdered for fighting for freedom of African Americans and other people of color. This weekend, the weekend just passed, we had Heather Heyer being murdered. Now, this is a clear indication that whites have always been involved in the struggle for African American freedom. And we need to keep an emphasis of that in order to keep the community together. We have a very good leader in the governor in New York. We have a very good mayor who are for civil rights and human rights. The key for us as educators, as commentators, is to make sure we keep the community, the good side of the community, together through this bumpy road, because it's going to be a bumpy road.
So how are we doing that?
Well, we've got to educate. We've got to get out there. I mean, I'm not particularly used to TV interviews, so I'm stepping out. This is an example of me stepping out.
But you got a classroom, is what you said.
But I have a classroom, and I have a very important role as an educator of the civil rights history. I'm a repository of that democratic experience for human and civil rights, and I take it very, very seriously. Dr. King's legacy, Malcolm X, all the leaders, Medgar Evers, who were murdered, Fred Hampton of the Black Panthers was murdered. You know, young people put me in this chair. You know, those civil rights activists put me in this chair as the leader in Africana Studies at Lehman College. So I understand my legacy, and that's why I'm here today. But to share also that we are a community. James Reeb was another person, a white man who was murdered in the 60s, 1965, on that Selma to Montgomery experience for voting rights. White man. So young people, I suggest that they study the civil rights movement, study the history of the KKK, and they will be far more informed. And to your question, we've got to get more knowledge out there to the broader community.
Dr. Mark Christian, we got to leave it there. Thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you.
We got to bring you back.
We'll see.
You said you're a repository, so that means you have to come back and bring us some more knowledge.
Okay,
Dr.
thank
Mark
you.
Christian. All right, stay tuned. We got more show coming up with us. We'll be right back right after these messages.
I'm only 17, but I know about investing. Believe in something, buy shares in it, watch it grow. So, what if you could invest in the future? The future of kids, like a stock. Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. I could be one of the first college graduates from my family, the first philanthropist from my neighborhood. And if I'm the first, then maybe there's a second and a third. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making Home Affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
Behold, the angry giant. Behold, the angry giant. Behold, the angry giant. Behold, the angry giant. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Well, have you ever heard of Foresight Collective? No? Well, the Foresight Collective is dedicated to helping students prepare for their future by empowering them through their specialized services that enhance professional development. Now joining us here on set to tell us more about the organization, we welcome now Foresight co-founder and chief marketing officer, Zeph Fataj, and good to have you.
And thank you, Darren. It's good to be here.
Good to have you. Yes, sir. So as we're talking about empowering youth, obviously the youth are our future, and it's a great show. We've been talking about a lot of things that have been going wrong. It's good to talk about some things we can get going right.
Absolutely.
And talk about empowering youth, and you use Foresight, to be able to do that. Give us a little bit about that.
So we've broken it down into what we consider Foresight's 4 sights, and that is insight, oversight, hindsight, and foresight. Insight being that we look into ourselves and think about what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, so we can work on those. Oversight being that we make sure we take advantage of the things, opportunities that we have now, and making sure that we're doing the best that we can. Hindsight being that we learn from our mistakes. And lastly, foresight, looking to the future and incorporating those 3 other sights, into making sure that our future is better and brighter.
And so for young people, talk about where you get your young people from and who your target group is.
So our target group is really the underprivileged in New York City. There's a lot of immigrants here. There are a lot of underprivileged individuals, some below poverty line, that are going to all kinds of high schools, and bright minds, very, very bright futures with the right tools. And so Foresight strives to be that tool. We try to help develop students professional skills and empower them to achieve the futures that they might see for themselves or wish that they could achieve.
And so they go through these components: insight, oversight, hindsight, foresight.
Absolutely.
What's the takeaway that you want from your young people?
What we want them to gather is the idea of the collective. They have the opportunity to be something great. Everyone does, we all do. And so the idea of the collective is that each of us can accomplish something as individuals, but as a group, as a whole, we can accomplish a lot more.
And so you have a workshop called the Model Workshop.
Yep.
Give us about the Model Workshop.
So the Model Workshop is designed to introduce students to the college setting. We bring in students from local high schools and we set them with college students. We have round tables where we have about 2 college students at each, working with 6 to 8 students and giving them insight from what they've learned over the course of their college experiences and the struggles they had to go through in order to get where they are. We have speakers, which are generally college students or recently graduated college students, to share with them what they've experienced in the workforce and as students as a whole, so that these students know what to expect going forward and have resources to use.
And you talk about serving the underserved and those who are impoverished in our community. It's a statistic about 55% of all children under the age of 18 in New York City actually live in poverty.
Yeah, so it's difficult to stomach those kind of numbers, and that's kind of what we at Foresight are trying to fight against. And we believe that the best way out of this poverty situation is through education, and so we try to empower these students to go achieve their higher education or achieve the jobs, internships, and so on that they are interested in and strive to be a part of.
So for young persons out there watching right now, parents out there saying, listen, I'd love for my young person to be involved, what do they do?
Absolutely. Actually, there are a couple channels you could check us out on. first, if you want to learn more about Foresight, go check us out at www.foresight, FOURSIGHT.org, or you could check out our Facebook page, Foresight Collective, and there we show some of our workshops, we show what we've done in the past, and explain what we do, how you can sign up with us and work with us in the future.
In developing young leaders, obviously a lot goes into developing these young leaders. What are some of the main components that I think young people need to know if they're going to be that leader that we're looking for in this day and time?
Yeah, that's, there's so many things that I could say, and honestly, the biggest thing is, in my personal opinion, being a first generation myself, both my parents were immigrants, so I had to work my way up, more or less, in the dark. But I was supported by a great family, and I was lucky in that regard. So I think the thing that I would suggest to all is not to give up. Always look forward, because there's always something better out there that you can strive for, and you never lose if you don't quit.
Foresight, why don't you go to foresightcollective.org. You can find out more information. Zeph Fataj is here with us. He is the co-founder and chief marketing officer at Foresight Collective. And so how long you guys been around?
Just under a year. So we'll be celebrating our anniversary in November.
What's it been like for you so far?
Honestly, it's been great. We've got a lot of feedback. Students love it. We've had some repeat students who are coming back to get more. We've worked in the professional development. We've worked in academic development so far, and we've seen some pretty good results, so we're looking to expand, hopefully.
So give us a little bit about academic development before we go.
Sure.
Share with us a little bit about the work you do.
What we do there is really similar to that. Certain high schools will be looking for particular workshops, fields, and so what we hope to create is mentor programs that these students can use working one-on-one with college students to help them get into universities, potentially help them in their field specifically, whatever they find themselves interested in. We did one workshop last fall on biofuels, for example, and so that helped some students realize that they were interested in engineering and helped them, move towards that field of study.
Well, Zeph Fataj has been with us, and he's here from Foresight Collective, and thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thanks for having me.
If you're a young person that wants to find out more information, or you're a parent, you want to get your young person connected, foresightcollective.org is the place where you go and find out more information. Take a quick break, but we'll have more show when we return right after this.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Cheru has no choice. She and millions like her walk miles a day for dirty water. But together, we can end their walk by providing clean water close by. Instead of spending hours walking to get water that makes them sick, girls can be in a classroom, and moms will gain back time to care for their families. Sons and daughters can grow up strong, finally free of sicknesses. It's true. When you just add water, you change a life. Learn more at worldvision.org.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race.
Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
My name is Osvaldo Adames. I grew up in the Bronx and went to school right here at the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice. In the 7th grade, I hadn't given college that much thought. But all of that changed when I entered the Bronx Institute at Lehman College's Gear Up program. Gear Up helped simplify the entire college application process, helping me prepare for the SATs and organizing college visits and open houses. Last year, I graduated from Hamilton College in upstate New York with a major in mathematics and a minor in Mandarin Chinese. Now, I'm a teacher at my old middle school. I think back to 7th grade, and I honestly had no idea how much help Gear Up would be. They offered me the support I needed to succeed. If you're enrolled in Gear Up, talk to your academic coach or visit the Bronx Institute at www.thebronxinstitute.org for more information.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
And we are back. The Fun in the Sun Family Event and Friends gives event, or I should say the Fun in the Sun Family and Friends event gives everybody the time to fellowship while actually keeping God in the center of it all. And our reporter, Katie Aloy Knight, was out there and she brings us a story right now.
What started out as a festival for college students in the island of Jamaica is now in the Bronx, showcasing talents and skills to empower the community.
It's called Fun in the Sun, but it is not S-U-N, it's S-O-N. It's honoring Christ and making sure that God remains in our community.
Fun in the Sun is being held at the Evander Childs Soccer Field in the Eastchester area of the Bronx.
We partnered up with Fun in the Sun, who has another family event to bring resources together and bring us all together as one neighborhood. So that's what we're doing here today with resources, games, ride, food, concert, the word of Christ, but more importantly, letting people know that we are one neighborhood, one community, and one family.
It's important to get out here and fellowship with your neighbors, right? Too often we come together in times of tragedy, we come together in times of negativity. This is a positive event all the way through. People are out here having fun, they're eating, they're playing, they're laughing, they're enjoying the togetherness of the community, and that's what we need more of. So I'm really happy to be out here today.
What the Bronx needed is more like this. Community together, what we are doing, whether it's Gospel Award, Hall of Fame, he's doing a different thing by reaching out to so many people. And I think this is very good and excellent that we can reach out to all the neighborhood, along with Andy King.
With a platform like this, individuals, corporations, city officials, and faith-based communities are now connected. For BronxNet, I am Katie Aloy Knight.
And thank you, Katie. And speaking of community meetings are actually held to help the community get, awareness and residents about what's going on in their neighborhood. Now, we're going to tell you about a very special community event and a special community group. Here now to tell us more about the Save Our Neighborhood meeting and also the rent overcharge event. We welcome now Banana Kelly lead organizer Anna Burnham and Banana Kelly resident leader Wanda Swinney, and they're here. And if you want to know a little bit about, it's talking about gentrification, things that are going on in our borough, gentrification as well as overpriced rents, and the two of them are on set now to share a little bit with us. And thank you both for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So when we talk about the borough of the Bronx, obviously the Bronx has changed, and we know that a lot of things have happened in the Bronx. But the big push and the big things that everybody's talking about is down in the Piano, they call it Piano District, gentrification, the South Bronx, moving out of New York, Harlem, people moving into the Bronx. Now it seems as though gentrification is moving into the Bronx. You guys pretty much are spot on in terms of identifying and dealing with it. Talk to us first of all about your recognizing what's happening.
Yeah. So Wanda, do you want to kick off what you got started with Banana Kelly?
Okay. Well, I have to talk from my experience. When I say my experience, it was with the hurt and pain of displacement, not only once but twice in my life. And I got to a place where I wanted to try to make a change, so I started tenant associations, trying to get people together. I wound up meeting with Anna Bourbon, and you know, she helped me, guided me, motivated me into doing things that we're doing today.
So when you talk about being displaced, give us a little bit of history. Like, what do you mean by displaced, so if somebody doesn't know?
Okay, well, I'm a mother of 6 children, and I was homeless once with 6 children. And do you know what it's like when kids are looking up at you and they're happy that we're all together, but you don't know where you're going? Okay. So, and then when I say twice, is that after my children had gotten older, my daughter went into the same situation. She was homeless for 2 years, and this is about 2 years ago.
So, and right now, our job, or your job, I should say, is really making residents aware of what's going on in the community, letting people know what's happening. So give us where we are.
Yes, definitely. So I think that folks, especially now we talked a lot about Trump earlier in the show, tend to think about racism and sort of racism in this country is stopping with Trump and not seeing how issues like the Piano District is an act of racism, right? It's white people with a lot of money going into a neighborhood and pretending like no one lived there beforehand, right? And coming in and building towers or building apartment buildings to make money and make a profit without considering what's going on at the local level. And as Wanda was saying, there's a lot of people that are struggling every day to make it every day and to just pay their rent. And so when you have pressures of coming in of massive development that is guided through city policy, right? Like when we talk about the Save Our Neighborhood meeting, we started that because the city came into our neighborhood and said, we're studying your neighborhood. And so what we read that is you're gonna rezone our neighborhood. We see it in East Harlem, we see it in Jerome Avenue, East New York. All of these areas are being targeted by city policy. And so when you have that targeting, you have a flush of capital coming in and development coming in and building housing that is too expensive for the people that live there.
And where does that leave you?
Yeah, where does that leave you?
And so you're having a community forum tonight.
Yes, yes. So we meet once a month for a couple hours. We always have dinner, childcare, and interpretation for Spanish. And so it is at 1283 Westchester Avenue, and it's always the third Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock.
So we invite people to come on out and be a part of that.
Yes.
In terms of that, and then also we talk about rent. You know, if gentrification is one thing, rent is another thing. You're already shaking your head.
It makes no sense. I mean, we deserve a place to live too, and everybody don't have these high incomes where they can afford these places that they're building. It's unfair to people.
Yeah, I mean, the argument is you have new development on one block, and then you have development that still needs to occur in terms of fixing up properties on the same block, but then you got a certain rent price here and a certain rent price here, and the two are there's a big disparity between the two.
Yeah.
What are we doing in terms of raising the voice in the rent crisis?
So this is really important to think about, right? Because we have a lot of folks in the Bronx that live in both rent stabilized and public housing, right? So they think that they're safe. You're living in NYCHA and the conditions are awful in NYCHA, but you know your rent's not gonna go up. But what you do have to think about is that when your neighborhood starts to change around you, you're gonna try and go to your grocery store and all of a sudden you can't afford to buy food for your kids because you're walking into a Whole Foods and not a grocery store that you can afford. Or your 75-cent coffee just turned to a $4 coffee. And the neighborhood changes around you. With rent stabilized units, there's a lot of pressure on those tenants because your rent is regulated to harass them and to push them out to get an empty building to raise the rent. And so the next training that we're doing next Tuesday on the 22nd, same place at 6 p.m., is to talk to folks that are in rent stabilized units about your rights as a rent-stabilized tenant in keeping your place affordable and make sure that your landlord is not already overcharging you because you have a lot of protections and you have a lot of rights and you need to really secure those, especially as this new development is starting that come into the neighborhood.
And so you've got two forums coming up, Why My Rent Is So High. That's taking place on August 22nd, huh?
Yes, yes. And so we're gonna have some lawyers come in that'll talk to you about how to get a rent history. If you're a rent-stabilized tenant, you can check your rent and make sure that you're paying the legal rent. And then he'll talk to you about how to identify if maybe you're being overcharged. If you are being overcharged, there's a way to actually reduce the rent that you are paying and make sure that you're stable for a long time in the community.
And so what does it mean to have this kind of support? I know she spoke about having you right there and being that support. What does it mean to you having that kind of support to help you in a time such as this?
Well, me, as far as the help I'm talking about is when we all come together, collaborate, and make changes with determination and with the resistance of roadblocks because we deserve to have a place to live too.
And a lot of roadblocks do you feel in this particular process when we talk about tackling rent, tackling gentrification? Do you feel like every block is a roadblock?
Yeah, I mean, the policy is not going far enough now, right? So these rezonings, this is Mayor de Blasio's affordable housing plan, but the problem is that the rents don't go deep enough still, right? This I will give it to him. It is the most progressive policy in the nation. However, the folks in these neighborhoods that are being targeted make far below what the income rates are for new development, and that's not okay, right? We need need better term sheets, we need affordability to go deeper, and we need to do better at protecting the people that are already in the neighborhoods and make sure they aren't chased out by speculation, by rising rents, and by new development.
And slumlords.
And slumlords.
And you put emphasis on slumlords. Has that been your history?
No, but I see it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
No, I see it a lot. I fight about it. I can't take it. I don't like it. You know, it's unfair to people. Like I said, a lot of people don't have these high incomes, and they find ways of getting people out of their buildings because they want to raise the rent, and it's unfair.
Yeah, it's a growing problem across New York City. Talk to me about elected officials. Where are they on the bandwagon of this?
Yeah, I think that you know, Councilmember Salamanca, who's in the Southern Boulevard District, he's had numerous conversations with us about this, and he's committed to community land trusts, which is a great way to keep things affordable. It's something we advocate for and train on because it's hard, right? Like, we live in a capitalist society, and we live in a city where real estate runs this city. And so I think that there are a lot of pressures on elected officials to make sure that we are still working with the real estate industry and booming this city in a way that can sometimes move a little bit too quickly. And I think that it's difficult to slow things down in New York City, in a city that moves so quick all the time. But you know, they're open to conversations, and we're open to having those conversations.
I got a quick answer for you on this one. Here, when we talk about the word gentrification, I talk to people. I've had a couple guests come here and sit here. It's not gentrification. It's called progression. How do you argue against that?
Yeah, so gentrification actually is like the removal of what they call like low income values, which is really coded in racist language, right? And so there are ways to improve a neighborhood without gentrifying a neighborhood, right? And that is to say that like you need to bring in white people or high income people to make people better, and that's what gentrification is. So there is a difference.
And where
right?
are we included?
Exactly, and so. You know, I think that gentrification really needs to be in the gentrification bucket, where we're talking about a very specific thing of changing people's culture and sort of labeling existing culture as bad. Not saying that we don't want. Yeah, do it. You got it. You say it.
Not saying that we don't want better, you know, or to see a change in the community, but where do we fit in at? Well, I mean, nobody talks to us about it. Right. It's like we don't have no say-so about it, and we deserve a place to live too. I have to keep saying that. I'm sorry.
Oh, and your voice is being heard. Wanda, Anna, we thank you because we're about out of time on this segment. Thank you so much for sharing. Of course, we'll continue to let the public know tonight, Wednesday, August 16th, Westchester Avenue, 1283. You can go to the forum tonight that deals with our Save Our Neighborhood community reading. And I thank you both for coming again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, listen, we're about out of time for today's show. We want to thank all of our guests for joining us, most of all you, the viewer, for tuning in. And if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the Recablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum's Channel 67, Verizon Files Channel 33, or watch us anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Before I leave, I got to wish my sister, Josefa, a very happy birthday. Today is her birthday, Wednesday, August the 16th. She calls it a national holiday, so you got a little national holiday on air. Josefa Jaime, happy birthday to you. For all of us here on the set of Open, thank you for watching. I'm Darren Jaime. Stay safe. Until next time we meet, keep this channel wide open. Take care. God bless.